All right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Instagram. Good morning, Facebook. Good morning, YouTube. It is Thursday. It is 9:30 that time. It is time for our weekly live. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I see people checking in from wet Southern California. I'm so sorry, wherever you are. Good morning, everyone from Michigan, Chile, New Hampshire. So we are in an interesting week this week. I'm in St. Louis. St. Louis in general. It is super warm. We hit record highs yesterday and I believe the day before. But we're going to have a drop in temperature. And when that happens in the Midwest, that is a fantastic formula for tornadoes. So we've got potential severe storm on the horizon for us as we go through a typical seasonal fluctuation in temperature. But until then, we're going to be totally enjoying these unseasonably warm 16, 70-degree days. So good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. I'm excited about today's show. Today's show is about giving you back time with hacks. We'll call them hacks, tips, tricks to make your sewing go faster and smoother. And so we've got, it came out of ideas from when we talking about chain piecing. So we did a whole chain piecing show and we're like, surely there's other tips and tricks we can share with everybody to make the process go faster and smoother. We're hearing that the sound quality is not great. I keep breaking up. So Paula is going to look into that. Thank you so much for letting us know. We will figure out if there's something that is not connected correctly. I will say, Jen JF, that it is probably better than the entire show I had to do without sound and was holding up signs. So I will take this is better. We will take a look and see about it. Sounds really choppy. Okay, everyone's saying it sounds really choppy. All right, Paula is on the scene and taking a look. She's actually, should we move the microphone, that microphone, if that's what we're using, much closer to me? Okay, let's hope that helps. Sounds really choppy. The sound quality is not great. Keep breaking up. All right, she's playing with some chords. Thank you guys. Definitely. If you see something, I want to make sure you guys hear this content because I'm hoping it's super fantastic. All right. Well, don't forget to stay all the way to the end of the show where we're going to have our giveaway. Let's see here. I switched to paste up from YouTube and the sound is much better. So evidently it might just be a YouTube problem. So let's not unplug anything. We will take a look at it before our next show. And oh, super clear. Yeah, everything is fine in Canada on Instagram. So thank you so much, Rainy Roots, for sharing that. So Instagram is fine. Looks like Facebook is fine. YouTube might just be having a problem. So they like to have fun. They were actually the source of the show that I had to do in complete silence. So we love YouTube. They're fantastic and great. All right, so don't forget to stay to the end of the show. We're going to do a $25 gift card. We're going to give away a prize just for staying with me and answering a question. Sounds better on YouTube now. Okay, so I just had to move the speaker closer. We will keep that in mind. Thank you, Jen, for saying something. We'll start as we always do with questions that have been submitted by you guys. So go to cottoncuts.com/live to submit your question. It is here in front of me. I don't know what it could potentially be. We'll see. We'll see where we go today. Let's see here. Yeah. Adam So says YouTube doesn't like multiple streams. Yes. Don't cross those streams either, by the way. I've heard that's a real darn bad idea. I am talking really fast. Sorry, Lonnie. It is like an adrenaline morning. I feel like we're stuff going on today, and I just can't wait to share it all with you. All right, so we're going to start with this question. Back to the questions. The first question comes to us from Sandra Holbrook from Boise, Idaho. Thank you, Sandra, for your question. I've been quilting for about 2 years now, and I keep hearing experienced quilters talk about pressing versus ironing. I've been just doing whatever feels natural, moving the iron back and forth. Is there really a difference, and does it actually matter for the finished quilt? Okay, so Sandra, this is a fantastic question. We've been talking a lot about pressing versus ironing. I feel like we might need to do a whole show on this because it keeps coming up again and again. So when you do sound fast, but it's not you, there's something going on with YouTube. It makes it sound like I'm on speed. Oh, wow. So I naturally talk fast. So if YouTube is accelerating my rate of speed, then wow, I am really going fast. So I'm sorry, gang. Let's see what the quilt cards are. So we've not. Why don't we? Let's come back to that in just a second. Let's get through these two questions on from Sandra. So she's talking about ironing versus pressing. And so for me, when I was first learning how to quilt, I just assumed ironing and pressing were synonyms. They're interchangeable. They are the same thing. And so I would iron my fabric just like I iron my clothes, which is you take the iron and you press it, and you just press it, and you're just literally ironing fabric like you iron clothes. And so there is actually a difference between ironing and pressing in the quilting world. And this is one of these subtle differences that that sometimes we'll call them the quilt police are very adamant about. And so when you are pressing your sewn, your stitched fabric, you were literally lifting up and pressing the iron down. So you are opening the fabric to the seams that you want on your ironing board, and you're going to lift your iron and you're going to push it down, and you are literally pressing. So when we say the word pressing, when you see the instructions press, it means literally just apply the weight and the heat from your iron and then lift it up. Move it over. Apply the weight and the heat from your iron, lift it up and move it over. So that is pressing versus ironing. When you hear people say ironing, they're actually dragging the surface of their hot iron across the top of their fabrics. Now, in theory, the difference that's going to induce in your fabric depends a lot on how the fabric is cut, how it's been sewn together, and what your finished product is going to be. But generally, whenever you are ironing, when you are dragging the fabric across, when you're dragging the iron across your fabric, you could potentially introduce errors for stretching. You could also introduce errors for misaligned seams. You can stretch any of those little areas where we might not have stitched it perfectly straight. If you are dragging your iron across fabric, you can induce places where you can stretch fabric past what it's supposed to do because it's cut on the bias, right? So in those situations, you generally want to press. Now, if you accidentally iron a square or a block, it's going to be okay. But general practice in a default mode, you really do want to try to press as much as possible. Now, for me, I have found a bigger difference between an iron that is wet versus an iron that is dry. So if I have a project, and I've said this many times before, water has not been in my quilting iron for about 10 years now. I don't put water in there. I like the dry iron, the dry heat, and I don't use steam until the project is final, until it's officially done and everything is stitched together. I have found that water in my iron introduces more air than pressing versus ironing. However, everyone's experience is going to be different. If you do a lot of projects where you have a lot of bias seam fabric that's cut on the stretchy edge, that ironing is going to have a bigger impact. But in general, you want to press. You want to lift and press. So just think about that when you're at your ironing board. You want to press. You want to press and you want to press. Lift that weight up and press down. And that will generally give you the most consistent seams and the most consistent finished product versus perhaps you cut this one at, instead of an exact 45 degrees, it was 47 degrees. And so it's going to stretch a little differently than the one that was cut at 49 degrees. And so you don't have to worry about all of those angular differences in your ironing and pressing, because those will actually impact your overall quality. All right, let me see here. It just seems like this audio is going fast. And so, Paul, I don't know what's going on there. She's going to take a look in that. I have noticed that sometimes when I watch a replay, like it sounds like I've taken helium and my voice is really high. And so I know that sometimes happens. So maybe it's a playback thing. I don't know. I know when I'm listening to an audiobook, it's accelerated for me. So perhaps that's similar in these scenarios. So I'm going to come back to Weave Nut's question. And so Weave Nut says she's a first time, or he or she, excuse me, I apologize, Weave Nut, first time mystery quilter. Please explain what the quilt cards are. Okay, so color challenge cards, and Paula is going to mad dash and get an example for me here in a minute. So color challenge cards are something that Cotton Cuts has been doing since our very, very, very first shipment 10 years ago. And so every month, everything that leaves here gets a color challenge card. And so it is a sample block that is meant to be sewn and stitched, or you can go on to the opposite side and use it as a coloring grid and color in what your interpretation of the block should be. And so we have over 10 years of cards in our vault. And so, yes, this camera is like, it likes to move. So I apologize, gang, if it's moving. So this is an example of what the February card looks like. I'm going to show you guys. On one side, it shows a finished block. All the blocks finished 12 by 12. We like to give you guys blocks and inspiration that all fit together. So it's all 12 by 12 block. Here's the cutting instructions for how to cut the fabric. And then here's the simplified stitching instructions. So it's meant to be very simple. We like to keep these on a 4x6 card. I got a card in the mail over the holidays that had just like pages and pages and pages of like super teeny tiny 4-point font and couldn't even read it. So these are the simplified picture-based instructions to how to stitch this block from these cut parts to make this product. And so this block actually has 4 colors in it. And so we give these out to you guys. Everything that leaves from Cotton Cuts comes with this. And in theory, on the back, if you submit by the 15th of the following month, so this is February. So if you use by the 15th of the following month and you submit either a colored in grid with your interpretation of the block or a stitched block of where you've actually cut and stitched it together, we pick one lucky person and we get a prize. Now, if you do all 12 months in a calendar year, so if you start in January and you go all the way through December, We give gift certificates. Isn't it like $50? We give yeah, we have if you submit a finished quilt where you've made all 12 blocks into a finished quilt top, you get a $50 gift certificate to our shop for playing along for all 12 months. And so it's just something fun we do. This isn't an overarching program. This isn't a big master contest. We really want to give these to you guys. I grew up in a world where we had the recipe box cards and you would collect all your recipes and be able to go through it. That was really kind of the catalyst and inspiration for this. And then the color challenge. And it looks like Oiling 365 says she hates coloring. They hate coloring theirs because I might use it differently next time. I agree with that. We actually have these as a digital download. The coloring grid is on a digital download on the website. And so if you want to color it, you can go onto the website, download the digital download, and you can actually color the challenges and still be entered to win. Now, you can color it on here, you can color it on the download, it's fine. But the download's only up for the month that the block is given. So at the end, so like right now, you won't be able to find, oh, you will, it's February still. You'll be able to find this one on the website, but you won't be able to find January's because we're past January. So we have the digital download only in the month that the card is actually shipped. Let's see here. Lonnie, if we missed one getting out to you, then definitely send us a note. We will get you caught up. If there's we put them in everything. Sometimes, we miss one, guys. We're sorry. We're human. This is a card. We can put it in the mail to you. It's not a problem at all. Haven't heard anything on this year's completed quilt. Is there a blog post this year? Yes, it is coming. Paula has told me it is coming. And so we had a lot of entries this year. I was pleased when I was seeing finished quilts coming out in December. You guys, that is fantastic. We usually give everyone till the end of January to get those quilts posted, and then we put the blog post out in February. So it is definitely coming. I can guarantee you that. Wow. Okay. We went off into a little bit of a corner there. That's fantastic. All right, so let's get to our second question. Our second question today comes to us from Debbie Tran from Raleigh, North Carolina. Or Debbie asks, I always seem to lose my 1/4 inch seam allowance throughout a project. My blocks start off fine, but the time I'm assembling the quilt top, nothing is lining up. I've tried measuring, but I still end up with blocks that are slightly different sizes. What am I doing wrong? Okay, so Debbie, I'm going to correct something here. You're not doing anything wrong. This is your quilt. This is your project. Things are just not aligning where they're quote unquote supposed to as defined by a pattern. So what I'm going to share with you is that a finished project is way more important than an in-progress project that's never finished. And so when it comes down to your individual blocks are sewing up fine and everything is hitting a dimension, and then as you start sewing them together into bigger projects, your seam allowances start drifting. That's because generally your project is getting bigger and it is getting heavier. And it is not always as easy as possible when you're sewing blocks together to keep a consistent 1/4 inch seam allowance. And so that is something that's just a matter of, that's why they created those extensible tables to add to your sewing machine. That's why they drop sewing machines down in tables so you can have this. So it reduces the weight and the pull on your project as it's going into your sewing machine. That'll cause some drift in those 1/4 inch seam allowances. Also, the more blocks you sew together, the thicker you're sewing through. And so some intersections can have as many as 20 to 30 layers of fabric that you're stitching through. And so that's a lot for a home machine to be able to manage. Yeah, so Katie Jolson saying the same thing about the voice and the garbling. So Katie, we've been looking at, there's something going on in some of the broadcasts. We'll hope to smooth that out. We definitely have the source video saved in StreamYard, the company we use to broadcast this. So if anything, we can download the video and upload it and be able to go that way. So we will work on that, Katie. Thank you for sharing that. So yes, so when you're sewing your blocks together, then you're compounding the weight, you're compounding the size, and that's where a lot of extra pins can help you. The more you pin those bigger blocks, the less they're going to move because we have gravity coming into effect. It's wanting to pull it away from your sewing machine. And then we've all been there where we're like chucking the fabric up on the table and we're trying to keep a consistent seam allowance. All of those actions are going to add some variability. And so what I would say is as long as your points are, you can drive by on a horse and not see the mistake, it is absolutely okay. If this is something that you really want to maintain crisp, sharp points and all those blocks as they come together, sew in smaller pieces, sew in smaller chunks, and pin a lot. If you want to see all those points come together at the intersection of multiple blocks, pin a lot. That is going to save you. I know pins, by the time you get into this weight, you can sometimes stab yourself. It's totally okay. You'll be fine. It's just a straight pin. But it is worth it if you want to retain those points that you worked so hard to build into your individual blocks. So Debbie, I hope that answers your question. I probably went in a little different direction than you were hoping, but I hope that helps. And I hope that you were able to keep those 1/4 inch seam allowances on your future projects. All right, Those are the questions. If you have a question for our show next week, simply go to cottoncuts.com/live to submit your question. They're here in front of me. We're always happy to answer them and go in lots of different directions, depending on where we're at that week. So, our next segment is what is on your sewing table this week. So every Monday we do a show and share in the shop, and we like sharing what the Cotton Cut team is working on. So this is our opportunity to hear what you guys are sewing on. So what is on your sewing table this week? I will share that my sewing table has my Luau mystery quilt on it, as well as my Night Glow mystery quilt on it. I'm getting ready for starting up a Field of Dreamers, as well as the starting up of Luau. So it is a very busy, muddled kind of table of a whole bunch of different projects, but it is, I mean, that's kind of the way we all are, right? If we're not working on more than one project, then it feels a little maybe wonky. In my mind, it does. So what are you guys working on? If you guys can hear me and if I'm not too garbled or going too fast, what are you working on this week? We also have, we had kind of a midweek show and share. So yesterday, Robin brought back a whole bunch of our quilts from the long armor. And so I have 6 quilts that just came, or 4 quilts that just came back from the long armor. Paula has a quilt that came back, as well as Savannah. So we will, what was that? We are going to post those later today. So you guys get to see some of the finished quilts that Team Cotton Cuts is working on. So long arming at Tinseltown, that sounds like an island hopping. Still finishing up 3 quilts, then back to bag making. I'm working on step 4 of Kona Eclipse. Yeah, that Aloha quilt, Linda, it is fantastic. I love the Aloha quilt. Oscillating between Under the Sea and Wild West. Janet is fantastic. Wild West it's an oldie but a goodie. So much fun. Quilting for my sanity, so easy project that brings me joy. Sylvia, I appreciate the approach. Sometimes I filter depending on how I'm feeling as to what project I'm working on. Lonnie is working on a local history center quilt for her guild. Savannah's working on her illusion. Say she just got there. We're going to talk about illusion here in just a second. Oh no, tummy bug. Yeah, there's a lot of flu going around. And so I've always said we will ship everything on time as long as the weather cooperates and as long as people don't get sick. And so we've been fighting with some inconsistent sickness here. We haven't had any outbreaks. Well, it like jumps over people, but it's that time of year. Whenever you have these rapid temperature changes, it's gonna happen. Let's see here. Kelly Parker just finished a rag quilt, and Michelle Williams is doing Tree of Life from Field of Dreamers, and sometimes a cat. Okay, I appreciate the cat is sometimes on your sewing table. That's fun. They got a chuckle out here from the shop on that one, so thank you so much. Working on a house for a village's quilt. Fantastic, Cindy. All right, so let's talk about what's going on in the shop. Let's give a shop update. It has been busy, and I kind of feel like I say that every week, like it's always busy in the shop, because we're working really, really hard on lots of fun and fantastic things for you guys. So the first thing I'm going to say is Luau kits shipped yesterday. So if you're a Luau detective, check that tracking. It is coming to you. We shipped all of the off the bolt kits. I think those all shipped early this week, and now we have the die cut kits are out the door. You guys, those Luau kits are going to be a lot of fun. We're going to start doing our videos next week to help you guys along the way. And then the first glue drops on March 4th, which is like rapidly coming real darn fast. It's also, I'm going to say Paula's birthday on March 4th. Yes, Paula's birthday is also March 4th. So when we do our launch video that day, I'll make sure to give her lots of love. Let's see here. Bobby Miller's working on her Thumbelina kit and hasn't had a chance to get into another quick peek. All right. If you were a Field of Dreamers detective, so we closed our prepaid sign up, and we have on the table right now kitting and shipping today and tomorrow anyone who signed up after January 20th through the end of signups. So those are going out the door. It is coming. I promise you. If you will get caught up. This is the only month you're going to have to wait. Next month you'll have your kit, you'll have your fabric right when the clue drops, and you'll be set for the next 9 months. It's only just a minor little delay if you signed up late. But of course, keep in mind, guys, we had a whole bunch of stuff we were kitting and shipping, and we had to make a date. So January 20th was what we decided. If you are an illusion detective, Lonnie is asking about illusion. So illusion is actually, we're targeting to have that ready and on the dock by the end of the day tomorrow. So we have all the prepaid kits. They're out. We know exactly what needs to be cut, what needs to be kit. We are going to be doing that over the day today, and we will have them on the dock in theory tomorrow. And so that's one of those ones we signed up. We definitely said March. We tried to be as transparent as possible. The fabric got to us earlier. We put it into the production queue, and so we're going to get these guys out to you. So it actually is not going to be shipping in March. We're shipping it 2 weeks early, which I am very proud of the team for going the extra mile and getting it done. And Paula is bringing over some snippets for illusion, so you guys can see how beautiful these fabrics are. Ba-bam. So we are cutting these, and the team is just going gaga over how artistic and how beautiful the fabrics are, how fantastic they look together. And as we're like this fabric right here, you guys, it's absolutely fantastic. It is so artistic. Right, we love it. It is going to be an amazing, amazing, amazing quilt, and it's going to be worth the wait, you guys. It's going to be worth the couple weeks you had to wait to get that kit in mail. So, all right, that is Illusion. Our Modern Maker shipped this week. Our Cuddle Book shipped this week. Our Classic is shipping really soon. If you are not a Platinum member, head on over. Platinum memberships get your choice each month between our Java, between our Modern Maker, and between our Classic memberships. And so we'll send you an email and saying, this is what we're going to ship in each one of these boxes. Which one would you like to ship it to you? You get your choice. You can flip, you can flop, you can stay the same each month. That's completely up to you, but Platinum is the ultimate choice and preference. Membership, be sure to go sign up for Platinum. Oh, and while we're talking about next month, so if you do sign up for Platinum and you choose Java next month, this is the lovely March bundle that we're going to be shipping to you guys. It's in that color I can't see. It's green. But at least it's not like super foresty dark green. Like this is a nice pastel spring green. I feel like this is appropriate for March. I can appreciate this type of green. It's definitely not that green that's not my jam, right? So it's very soft, very pastel, very spring. Love this one. Let's see here. Jenja is asking, she hasn't received backing with her first box. Will that be coming when the rest of the kit is mailed out? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about backings because I want you guys to make sure you're checking your orders on these. So a lot of the backings were delayed shipments. And so when you purchased your backing for Field of Dreamers, in the actual title on your order, if it was delayed, it would say ships in June or ships in July or ships in March. Like we put in the ship date when it would be coming because manufacturers, wide back is a very different supply chain, you guys. Not the manufacturers don't keep wide backs on their shelves. So sometimes they have to order them and get them in. And so we communicated when wide backs would be shipping in the order. So if you have a wide back and it wasn't with your order, please check to make sure it doesn't say like ships in June, ships or July. And what's going to happen is we've actually created a separate order for those in your account. So you'll see that and you'll know when that ships and you'll get tracking and know when it's going to come to you. So your first step, if you were like, I ordered backing, it's not here, check to make sure it wasn't a deferred product. If it was honestly missed, right, just let us know. We've got it. We'll get it out to you. We'll get it shipped to you. But check to make sure first that it wasn't a delayed ship backing. All right. Jana is dancing and happy, and the illusion is fun. Loving the pastels, Savannah. Thank you. Are you still doing the effect? So we are actually going to be tapering down our thread membership. So we're not taking any new thread membership. We're going to be tapering that down. I want to relaunch that. I want to give it a fresh set of eyes and take a look at it. If you're currently a thread member, we're going to continue to ship that to you, but look for a brand relaunch coming soon. Let's see here. Lonnie says it has her count that her wide back is already shipped. Well, then it's on its way to you, Lonnie. If it's already shipped, it is on its way. Okay. All right. So we have some announcements of things that are coming out looking forward because we always have fun things on the horizon. So the first thing, our blowout sale is going on right now. It started on Tuesday. It ends on Saturday. Yes, it ends on Saturday. And we've done our daily drop. So we did daily drop Dutch auction, as Jana reminds me. We did a daily drop in December and we brought it back again, but we're doing it a little differently this time. So we have less quantity. So last time some of the fabrics had 5 or 10. We're only doing 2 of each of the fabrics. Each day we're dropping a different color. So the first day we did a rainbow order. So red and orange. The second day was yellow and green. Today is blue and purple, and tomorrow is neutral fabric. And the way it works is on the day it's dropped, it is $50 for a 5-yard bundle of fabric. So $10 a yard. Then if it's still inventory available, the next day it goes to $45 for the bundle. If it's still available, it goes to $40 for a bundle, and we'll drop it down until it's sold out. And so what we found is a lot of people jump in when it's like 40-ish, $35-ish. So if you have something, your eye on something, and it's in that price range, please grab it. There's only 2 of it, and so if it's been bought, it'll be gone. There was a fabric that did disappear at the $50 price point. So if you love it, and I think I had Lincoln here talking about it, if you love it, buy it because it's fantastic. And it's probably not going to be there if you wait until tomorrow. It's kind of this gambling game. That's why it's called the Dutch auction. But yeah, jump on in there if you are so inclined. And we also have a whole bunch of strip kits and bundles and things that are on a huge amount of clearance. We're trying to clear things out because we're starting to bring in new projects in the spring. And so we want to make sure we have plenty of room for that here in the company. Yes, in the showroom. So yes, Kate, that is absolutely correct. The neutrals are only going to go down to $45. And then once the daily drop ends, then it'll be done. So we don't have as many neutrals and black and brown as the other fabrics. So jump on those if you see them. All right, next on the calendar. So this Saturday morning at 8:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, we are going to be doing a live sew event. So it's going to be in this format. We're going to broadcast. We will not be able to do it on Instagram, but we're going to do it on StreamYard. So if you're on Facebook or if you're on YouTube, you will be able to see it. And this is going to be an opportunity. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So this will be an opportunity for us to sew Clue 1 of Field of Dreamers together. So I will actually have a sewing machine here, and I'm going to have my little pressing mat and my little iron, and we're going to be sewing Clue 1 together. And so that if you are a new detective, you are a first-time detective, or even if you're just a seasoned detective and want to hear maybe some tips or tricks that you don't know about, you're going to want to join that session. It's going to be interactive. There'll be lots of questions asked. I'll be sewing it, and I will actually at the end have a finished Clue 1 for a night glow quilt. And so what we're going to do is we did this a big announcement on all of our social media. I am the first stop on our new mystery quilt with a mission project. So there are a total of 9 quilters that are getting together. Each one of us is going to sew a different clue for night glow, and we're going to sign it with our names. And then we're going to take all of those clues and we're going to sew them together into a larger quilt. And so when this quilt is finished, it will have all 9 of our signatures on it. All of us will be sewing the same fabric together. And then we're going to auction off this quilt. And so this quilt, all the money raised from the auction, raffle. I want to make sure I use the right word, raffle. We're going to be raffling off the quilt. And so all money that is raised from the raffle tickets is going to support our friends at the Social Justice Sewing Academy. So we have been a longtime supporter of Social Justice Sewing Academy. We've sponsored some events with them. I have been a mentor of some of their graduates from their academy. And so this is an important organization for Cotton Cuts. We love being able to support organizations that are doing good things in the world. And buying those raffle tickets will go to them. Cotton Cuts always matches. So know that for every $5 you spend, Cotton Cuts is going to be spending $5 right there with you. When we get to the end, we will pick a winner for the raffle. You are going to win that quilt, and it'll be fully quilted for you. I think the binding we're going to leave for you guys to do. We might send it with the quilt, but it'll be a fully quilted quilt. So you're not just going to get the flimsy, you're just not going to get the top. You will get a fully quilted quilt if you win the raffle. Jan is asking who's hosting the society tonight. Carrie is hosting the society tonight, Jana. She's awesome. We love Carrie. We love everyone. But Carrie's super awesome when she's in there because I know she goes with you guys. Okay. So definitely be there on Saturday at 8:30. Hang out with me. We're gonna have a top camera so you can actually see how perfect my points are gonna be while I'm watched by all of you. So let's join in and have some fun together. Even if you've already sewn your Clue 1, again, like I said, you might have some tips and tricks to pick up along the way. And then next Saturday night, the 28th at 6 o'clock, we're gonna be doing a YouTube live sale. So we're kind of testing different times to kind of see what works out. But we're gonna do a Saturday night time and see if you guys like that. So this one is going to be a seasonally themed live. So we're going to have bundles in a seasonal theme. We're going to have fabric in a seasonal theme. So this is going to be, think of a whole calendar year. It is going to be on February 28th, 6 o'clock on YouTube only. And of course, we'll have giveaways and fun stuff because that's what we do. Before we jump into our main segment today, though, before we start talking about the hacks, I want to talk about our stars. And so if you're a Field of Dreamers detective, you should have gotten fabric in your Clue 1 and were asked to trace a star, cut the star out, and send it back to us. And so I've gotten a little bin here. We're going to iron them on. There's going to be a great big ironing event in the shop, and we'll iron the stars in the sky that we've gotten so far. But I love it when you guys include little notes on them. And so Teresa H. from Missouri says, happiness is not by chance, but by choice. And so she wrote it on her little star here. I want to share it with you guys. I have another one that says, buy the ticket, take the ride, from Dawn from Nevada. Super fun. I love it when you guys leave these little notes for us. And I love that these stars are so much fun. There's so many different colors. This one says, keep your eyes on the stars and your feet on the ground. Kim from Oklahoma City. And she's doing glimmer. Yay. Thank you, Kim, for sending that in. Let's see here. Kathy from Tacoma, Washington says, thank you for all your hard work. You are appreciated. Rock star. So she called her star a rock star. So Savannah, definitely send us a note. It should have been a square of fabric that would have been stapled to a paper with instructions. And it'll tell you to trace out the star and where to send it to. So if you didn't get that, Savannah, just send us a note. We'll get it out to you. All right. Let's talk about hacks. So last week we talked about chain piecing. I think it was last week we talked about chain piecing. And that's one of those quilting hacks that once you learn it, it just becomes part of your culture. It becomes part of your fabric, of your being. And you can't not do it because it just makes things so much faster and so much easier and so much cleaner. And so when we were looking at that, we're like, are there other tips and tricks and hacks that we can share with you guys? Perhaps have a discussion. Have you tried them and see if they work? And is this something that perhaps we can shave off a little bit of your sewing time so you can sew more, right? That's why we hack. We hack so we can sew more, so we can finish more quilts, and so we can have more fun doing it. So these tips and tricks, as I've been looking at them, are more about getting things right the first time and less fighting with your fabric and your process. And so I think that's something that as you're thinking about how can I make this faster and easier, it's really about increasing your ability to get things right the first time. So that way you're not using a seam ripper. So that way you're not fighting with a heavy piece of fabric that's just not laying correctly. And it's really just how do we get things right the first time? And as I was reading through this, a lot of these tips and tricks are things we use here on our shop floor that our employees know that, hey, let's make sure we're following these steps so that way we can get it right the first time. Because rework is costly, rework slows us down. So it's a lot of parallels between the tips I'm going to share with you, as well as what the production team uses. So one of the first things that is always, always, always recommended is planning and organization. And I know you're like, why would I plan? Why can't I just jump in and sew? I've only got 30 minutes. I want to jump in and sew. Because sometimes skipping the plan, skipping the organization, not reading all your instructions through all the way, does lead to a lot more rework because you don't know where you're going. You're living in this moment here, and you haven't taken a look to see what the end result is. And sometimes mistakes happen, and then you've got to go back and redo it. And so, really, it's about taking just a short minute before you sit and sew and just reorienting yourself. Is my machine on the right setting, guys? Like, I can't even begin to tell you that half a second of is my machine on the right setting, it can save you so many heartaches and headaches, especially if you're changing your stitch length because you're doing foundation paper piecing and all of a sudden you're back to regular piecing. You're like, why is my sewing going so slow? It's not your machine, it's your stitch length. So definitely starting out and making sure your machine is set correctly. I have definitely, and it hurts me to think about this. I had embroidery stitches in place and I started regular piecing and all of a sudden it was like doing some crazy zigzaggy type thing. Yeah, just taking a minute, making sure that your machine is set up correctly, making sure you've got the right needle, making sure your bobbin is full, and also getting back into the mind space of where you were when you last left your project. So sometimes we leave projects mid-flight, right? We get called, we've got to go make dinner, we've got to go pick up someone from somewhere, the phone rings, whatever happens, you get distracted. And when you want to come back, make sure that you're in that same kind of headspace you were when you got up versus just sitting and starting the machine again. I've done that here, I've done that at home. Like I get this sewing machine, I'm like, oh, it's already in the machine. Like, surely this can't be that part. And before you know it, I forgot that I was only supposed to do half this way and half this way. And had I taken just that half a second, I could have remembered half were this way and half were this way and not all this way. And so now we got to fix these have to go that way. So it's just taking that minute of, what are the next things you've got to do and trying to also, the tip is when you are leaving, because you've got to go do these things, is writing yourself a note and making sure that you're giving your future self a gift by telling you where you left off and what needs to happen next. Because sometimes I'm reading a pattern and I am short cutting it, I'm trying to find the best way to do it, and then I leave and I forget that. And so even just giving yourself a helpful little note is going to help you when you go to start back up, because that startup phase is when you want to be able to jump back in quickly and efficiently, but you have to take the time to make sure you're going in the right direction. And so let's see here. The other thing is the pressing strategy. So we've talked a lot about pressing and ironing the past few shows. I get it. But knowing how you're going to press so you can actually bulk press is one of these hacks that a lot of people kind of jump over. They think I'm going to sew a couple of pieces and then I have to press one completely and set it aside. I have to press one completely. I actually line all these up and I just put a piece down, press, and I am literally going like this down my ironing board. And it is not my iron literally never comes back up, or if you have an Elise, so never stays down. It is constantly just press, 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 because I have all the parts and pieces lined up and how I want them pressed versus pressing one and setting it off to the side and pressing one and setting it off to the side, batch pressing. But that can only happen if I have a strategy ahead of time. And if I'm reading through the step completely and knowing that these 4 pieces are going to be pressed together and these 4 pieces are going to be pressed together, or in the event of island hopping, these 192 9 patches are going to be pressed together. And make sure that you're pressing as you go. And so I am going to say this and be very transparent. When I was first learning how to quilt and how to sew, I thought I could save pressing till the very end. Like the first time I would press anything would be the final quilt. And I say this, and I know if you're a seasoned quilter, like that's very laughable to think that someone would be able to do that. But when I was first starting out, I was like, I don't need to press as I go. I'm just going to wait and press till I end, because I was a beginner and I didn't know better. And I know that we all have those things that as a beginner, we thought that okay, yeah, we can just do things a certain way until we learned there was a better way. And so I will readily admit that I used to press at the end. I waited until the very last end and I was like, why are my points not matching? Why is none of this working? And it's because I didn't know to press as you go. The patterns I was reading didn't have pressing instructions like they do today. Let's see here. Michelle Williams is saying that she has macular degeneration. I'm so very sorry, Michelle. And she found that a 1/4 inch foot with the bar helps keep her seam somewhat straight. Yes. So a lot of sewing machines come with this bar. And what's that? Oh, sorry. I thought Paul was saying something. So a lot of the sewing machines come with a bar. And so you actually raise your knee to start and stop your machine, which actually helps keep your seam somewhat straight because you can keep your hands on your project. And so there's a lot of these things that presser bar, it came with my machine. I was like, I'm not trying this. But I know people that use it love it, and it actually works really well for them. So I will tell you, when I got my sewing machine that had a button to start and stop, I was like, I'm a foot pedal person. I'm a foot pedal person all the time. Why would I not use my foot pedal? And then I started using the button in a class, and there's no going back. I can use a foot pedal now. I don't like to use a foot pedal. My kids, they use a button, and I will come up to a sewing machine. And I'm like, here's a button. I just start and go. No foot pedal needed. And it's one less accessory. Again, back to the efficiency and making sure that you move things through as quickly as possible. Don't need a foot pedal if you don't use a foot pedal. Let's see here. Jana says that for her first quilt, she didn't press at all, not even at the end. Yes, like that happens, Jana. And it's one of those, when you're beginning, you just don't know any better. And so those types of things, as you're standing here, wherever you are in your quilting journey, and you're looking back, we've all had those moments. And for me, it was definitely not pressing until the very, very end, which was a terrible idea. So please don't do that. And if you're doing that now, it is absolutely okay. You are not alone. So we did talk about squaring up our quilt. We talked about squaring up blocks in a previous show. And so this is something that this is you're giving yourself, your future self, a gift by squaring up as you go, by trimming as you go. And I know we all get in these moments of like, it's close enough, it's okay, it'll be fine in the end, until you're doing a quilt that has 400 blocks in it, and close enough becomes very wonky at the end. And so I know that it takes that extra time, but you're actually saving your future self a headache of trying to, force and ease and push and pull and fight with your fabric, because you didn't take a few seconds to just trim and square as you went along. Now I am in the boat where I'm like, I just want this done, and I can fudge factor and I can, make it ease in, but at the same time I have squares that, are trapezoids and that aren't exactly square. And depending on the project, that might be okay. But then there are times where I'm like, I put a lot of effort into this and I want it to be great. And so that's really where taking that extra time to square as you go will make the final assembly process that much easier, that much smoother, and it'll take so much weight off of you to know that everything is square and even and your inputs are good. Again, the better your inputs are into the process, the better your output will be. And I know many of us race to output and we're like, hey, I'm just going to focus on the end. But the better your inputs are, the better the output will be, and the easier it will be to get to that good product. Let's see. Here's a cutoff date for the stars. Katie, no, absolutely no cutoff date for the stars for the banner. We will keep firing them on as they keep coming in, and we're probably going to be doing it through month 5 or 6. So there's no cutoff date for that at all. Let's see here. Savannah says the start-stop buttons on her machine are great if you have a dog who needs to be lying on your feet. Yes, that's true. And I taught my kids with the button because their feet couldn't hit the floor either. So it's another kind of just having that button when your feet can't touch the floor. And I know not everyone is tall, and so if you've got short legs, this could also help you as well. Let's see here. So nesting seams. So we've talked about nesting seams on previous shows. And so again, this is something that by following the pressing instructions, by following your pressing strategy, your seams can come together. And when they come together, it requires less headache, it requires less pins, and your nesting seams get sharper points. Nesting seams, again, when I was younger, I was just sewing away. I didn't even know what a nesting seam was because I wasn't even pressing anything. But once I uncovered and really forced myself to take the time to learn what a nesting seam is, everything got easier, everything got smoother. I wasn't sewing through, 20 layers of fabric every time through my sewing machine. It actually makes the piece of the sewing go much smoother and easier. And so I wasn't having to start and stop and pull and yank and twist and turn and really struggle and fight. Nesting seams takes all of that away and makes the process that much easier and takes a struggle out of the step if you can. Let's see here. Catherine says with the problem quilt, she uses sashing all around you square and then squares that up to the correct size. Yes, I have been known to use that trick, Catherine. If I am too far down the path and I didn't take the time on my inputs, I definitely added sashing to give me that fudge factor. And so there are tricks that are fudge factors. And so if it's not perfectly square, then put a border on it that is square and kind of cut it down. So then that way everything you attach to it is going to line up because you've made the dimensions the way you want the dimensions to be. Linda says she didn't square up her first PMQ, then she learned. She squares up at the end of each clue, much easier than the final assembly. Yes, the better your inputs are, the better the output will be. Okay, let's see. We already talked about the planning and organization. So then there's some kind of smaller tips and tricks that are kind of as you're thinking, hey, can I possibly do this there? So there's what we call the chainsaw method of half square triangles. And so we talked about this when we talk about bias edges, but instead of cutting a triangle, cutting two half square triangles and sewing on the diagonal, you actually take a square, you draw a line on the diagonal and you stitch off both sides of it and then you cut on your line. And so in that method, you actually get two half square triangles instead of one. And because you don't cut those bias edges until after it's stitched together, the shape tends to hold more. There are a number of hacks online, 2 at a time, 4 at a time, 8 at a time. I think I've seen as many as 16 as a time. Anytime it comes to half square triangles or flying geese, there's always these tips and tricks that if I take a 10-inch square and I draw these lines at these angles and stitch in a certain direction, bam, snap your fingers and a whole bunch of half square triangles come out. And I've definitely used those hacks. I've definitely used those tips and tricks, but I've also had to trim after the fact as well, because in many of those cases, they are too big for the finished shape. So while it's easy and efficient to do this, I'm going to just draw all these lines and stitch all these lines. Sometimes it does require just a little bit more work because you're accommodating in your input that your output of that step is going to be just a little bigger than it's needed. But it is very efficient. And if you're doing a project like a Bonnie Hunter project that has a lot of them, sometimes those 8 at a time, 12 at a time really make a lot of sense if you're doing a lot of fabric. And they're usually more efficient on your fabric. They don't waste as much if you're doing a multiple at a time as well. And again, because you're doing the 10-inch square or the 12-inch square, whatever it tells you, you're stitching it and then cutting it. Those bias edges tend not to stretch as much as you're going through your process. There's also the leader and ender quilt. And so I know that all of us know the trick of feeding a scrap piece of fabric into your machine before you start. So that way, as you start your piecing, the fabric doesn't get sucked into your machine and everything continues out. However, Bonnie Hunter is kind of the pioneer in this system where that leader piece that you put through is not a scrap, but it's actually a second quilt. So as you're making this quilt over here, the leader that you put in at the beginning and the ender that you put in the end, you're actually sewing a second quilt as you go along. And so she has a whole system about this. There's a whole blog post. There's actually many blog posts about this, where you're actually sewing two quilts at the same time while getting to that purpose of the leader, which is to keep your fabric from going into your machine. Now, of course, that first piece is going to potentially get sucked into your sewing machine, but it's scrappy and it's meant to be in a secondary quilt that's kind of going to come after the fact. But that way you're dual purposing rather than feeding in a scrap piece. And like I do, and I don't think I have any examples here where I've got like, 27 rows on it as I've been using it as a leader. Instead of wasting that thread and wasting that time, you're actually making a second quilt. It's a fantastic process. If you've got a lot of scraps, it's a fantastic way to get a second quilt out of it without having to sit and dedicate yourself to a scrap project. The scrap project becomes integrated into all your quilts afterwards. All right. I use this all the time, this next step. I have my cell phone with me. Whenever I'm in my sewing room, I have my cell phone with me. And if I lay out a block, I take a picture of it. If I lay out a finished design on a design wall, I take a picture of it. If I take a row, I'm taking sewing together, I take a picture of it. And then that way I have my cell phone right next to the sewing machine and I can see how whatever it is I want laid out, because we've all been there, right? We're carrying things from here to there. And before you know it, you're like, is this triangle on top? Is this square on the left? Is this square on the right? How do I manage all of this as you transport it too? I like to think that like, oh, I'm going to put this together and I put my little pin here so I know I sew this seam. Things hit the ground, things fall. Even if that doesn't happen, you sit down and you have brain fart from your design wall to your sewing machine, and you forget that I'm supposed to sew on the right side of the square instead of the left side of the square. And so taking that photo is definitely something that when you take the photo and having it there, that is that added level of assurance to make sure you're doing it right the first time, right? Again, we want to make sure we're doing it as right as possible the first time and just taking a quick little photo. Okay. We're not the times we were talking just this past week. We're not the times where we got little disposable cameras and we got to wind and we got to take to the photo booth and get them developed. We're in a world where the technology is right there. So you might as well use it in simplest form. Just take the photo and then have it by your machine so that way you can keep going. Let's see here. Is there a math hack on the square size to start with and the X size of half square triangles? Yes, Melinda, there are tons of tutorials on that. So usually to get a 3 7/8 half square triangle, you want to cut it 3 7/8, or you'll find a lot of patterns that'll say cut it 4 inches, cut on the diagonal and then trim it down. The half square triangles are generally easier because you're just going up to the 7/8. Once you get into the quarter square triangles and the flying geese, that's where it becomes a little bit harder to really answer that question directly. But if you want to get a 3.5-inch finished half square triangle, you're going to cut it 3 7/8. All right. Let's see here. Jana says she uses her color challenge block as her leader. Oh, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that could be your leader project is before you start sewing everything, you're sewing part of your color challenge block. I love that. All right. And then, okay, so guys, I have to ask you, this came out on the list. How many of you pre-thread your bobbins before you start a project? Now, I know that there are a lot of people that before they start a project have the discipline to sit down and fill 4 bobbins. And so that way they don't have to stop, right? So as you're stitching along, you run out of bobbin thread, you lose bobbin chicken, they just load their bobbin and it's right there. So I would love to know how many of you guys pre-thread your bobbin. I will share, I do not. I am a like, okay, I can just stop and wind my bobbin type person, but I know there's some folks that do that. I think, you know, I've heard that a lot of people use this for their grandkids. When their grandkids are over, they have their grandkids thread their bobbins on their machines. But this is one of the tips and tricks is just making sure you have 3 to 4 bobbins before you sit down. Tina buys them pre-threaded. So Tina, I am always afraid to do that, to buy them pre-threaded, because I feel like I'm gonna buy them and I'm going to use them for a project too and then forget about them. And by the time I get back to them, the thread is going to be deteriorated and broken. But I love that you buy them pre-threaded. Bobbin as needed. Cats, let's see here. Patricia Mintaka, there will be a tutorial about how to use the cat's cradle ruler. Savannah does it for long arming, not for piecing. I get it. For long arming, right? You've got this machine up there. You've got everything set up. You don't want to have to stop and re-thread those bobbins. On my little machine, I'm like, it's not that hard. I just pop the bobbin out, put it over here, wind it and bring it back. It feels okay. Let's see here. My old machine winds bobbins on the hook area, so I don't pre-thread bobbins. That's fair. I wind the bobbins I need before I start a project. For the alarm arm is pre-wound. Yes, it's fantastic, you guys. I think this is a tip. If it works for you, like try it. Maybe in your next project, like pre-wind those bobbins and try it. And if you like it, it gives you joy, then keep doing it. And if you don't like it and you're a just-in-time bobbin winder, then definitely do that too. Let's see here. Marie says, okay, this is a fantastic trip, right? So every now and then we have some of the machines we're able to self-service. Some of the machines need to be taken into self-service. And so Marie is saying that she has 5 pre-threaded at the beginning of a project. And when she's on her 5th, she knows it's time to clean and sew out clean her machine and service the machine. That's a fantastic tip as well. I've also heard, and this probably comes from needle manufacturers, that you should have a fresh needle at the start of a project. And once you get to the end of your project, that's when you know your needle is done and it's time to change it. Metal gets burrs, metal gets dull. We all know this. Changing a needle can be a fantastic thing to do, but using the length of a project to gauge the life of your needle is also a fantastic little tip and trick as well. All right, you guys, this is fantastic. This was amazing. So these shortcut things, you know, it's not about cutting. It's not about that, but it's actually about making your process cleaner from the beginning. So that way you save yourself the headache at the end and making sure that your process is just as easy as possible. Giving yourself the future gift of an easy project. And that's leaving yourself the notes. That's giving yourself time to plan. That's being efficient when you're ironing and pressing, not ironing when you're pressing. That's also making sure that your final assembly goes together as smoothly as possible. And if you've got some errors, knowing these little tips and tricks about adding borders to help it go smoothly. So making sure that, those all that wasted energy. It's about removing waste from the process. If you have to take apart a seam, if you have to, fight and fudge and use starch and pull and stretch, all those things that you're struggling with are waste, and making sure your inputs are as good as possible will help minimize all that waste and give you the option to sew faster, sew more, and get more done. All right. I'm taking a look at this here. So Oiling says, I clean machine out every other needle change, new needle every other day, unless I feel it needs a new needle sooner. Wow, you are sewing a lot if you were changing your needle out every other day. That is admirable. Let's see. Deb Jean says she's going to steal the cleaning tip. That's a good one. Savannah says definitely change your needles. I just snapped my rolling ruler foot last month because I thought I could get away with it for a small project. Yeah, I feel like, okay, so Savannah, I'm going to talk about that a little bit. As quilters, we feel like we're going to get away with a lot of stuff. And usually the materials we're using are unrelenting and will teach us that we can't necessarily get away with all the things we want to get away with. Like we win bobbin chicken and we finish our project and we don't need to wind a new bobbin. And so we feel like we're walking on air, and then the needle decides to break on us, right? So I feel like the materials we're working with, they will definitely catch up with you if you get away with things too many often. The world has a way of working itself out evenly. All right. That's it, gang. That is it for us today. Thank you guys so much for hanging with me and sharing your tips and tricks. I have learned some things along the way. And as always, I appreciate you guys showing up. We were going to do our giveaway, our $25 gift certificate to the shop for hanging with me. So here's the question. And it's kind of a long one, so please bear with me on this. But what is the one thing that you used to do when you started sewing that you later modified to be better when you knew more? And so this gets to that, I didn't iron when I was early on. And now I'm like, why wouldn't I have ironed, right? And so I want you guys to share that one thing that you used to do when you started that you changed later when you knew more. And I want this because we have a lot of new quilters and a lot of new sewers that are coming on board for the puzzle mystery quilt. A lot of people that are just, for their first sewing machine, all of these things. And so I want you guys to share with us what's something that you used to do that when you learned more, you're like, I should not be doing. I also learned the benefit of using a walking foot. That is something when I was early on and I was sewing on binding and I was quilting, I didn't know what a walking foot even was. I didn't know what a quilting foot even was. And so I want you guys to just share those tips and tricks for someone who might be doing something some way. And just because they don't know that there's an easier, better way to do it. So that's a fantastic hack we can share with everyone and pass forward. All right. So leave the answer to that question anywhere you're watching this video, on Instagram, on YouTube, or on Facebook, and we'll pick one winner. And let's see here. Thank you so much for showing up, you guys, as always. We've got the blowout sale. We've got the daily draft. We have our live sew-in on Saturday morning at 8:30. We have our YouTube live sale in a week on Saturday night. There's just always so much going on here, and I appreciate you guys hanging out with us. I'm just going to take a quick section here. On Instagram, reading the directions fully before starting the quilting. Yes, absolutely true. Squaring up the pieces, using the special ruler to trim half square triangles before pressing. Yes, that is absolutely valuable as well. The lock block also helps with that too. Anytime you have that lock block, that helps with all of your trimming. Squaring up, starching at the beginning, best press. And yeah, you definitely cannot starch. You have to starch it all at the same place, Catherine. I'm so glad you're sharing that one too. Putting in a new needle. Yeah, I didn't know I needed to change my needle as frequently as I did, for sure. All right, you guys, this has been fantastic. Thank you guys so much for sharing your thoughts and ideas with everyone today. I hope you guys enjoyed the show, and I hope to see everyone on Saturday morning. I hope everyone gets lots of sewing in. Everyone have a fantastic day, and bye now. And cut. Thank you so much for watching our video. We have so much fun making these, and we hope that you were both delighted and inspired by what you just watched. This video was sponsored by Cotton Cuts. Cotton Cuts is your one stop for all the best fabric and thread memberships. Love fabric? We've got you covered. Love thread? We've got you covered. We get that no two quilters are cut from the same cloth, which is why our memberships are as unique as you. We also have the largest block of the month in the world. Over 4,000 detectives solve our puzzle mystery quilts every year, and you can join them. Simply go to cottoncuts.com to learn more about all the awesome and fun things that we're doing. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe to make sure you get all of our new, fresh content every time it comes out. Thank you so much. Happy sewing enthusiasts, and we will see you soon. Bye. Bye now.